All an encounter is throwing some monsters on the table, letting the players roll initiative, and combat's then. That's all you need for an interesting encounter, right? Not even close! Let's talk about some interesting encounters that both include combat and may not include combat, because encounters are so much more than just rolling dice to hit another creature. The first encounter that I would love to see more of is the Mystical Courtroom. So the Mystical Courtroom is one where someone, either a player or an NPC, has broken ties or broken a contract with a fae or a devil. The players are then hired or basically have an interest in getting this person out of their deal. The deal is all about the details. So the contract is usually filled with bits and pieces of things that don't make a whole lot of sense that the players could have broken, but there's also bits and pieces the devil or the fae might have broken as well. Now, not only is this more about the contract itself and trying to find out the truth, there are other people that are influencing this mystical courtroom. This courtroom has people that are influencing others, that are making the decisions. Maybe it's just not the fake creature. Maybe there is an entire jury of mystical creatures that are allowed to interact, unlike our court system, that you could influence outside of the actual courtroom, each one having an individual quest that you could go on to turn their favor. The mystical courtroom gives you such an amazing turn of events to be able to lean into, both diplomatic and combat-wise. Maybe someone is looking for a specific magic item that if you go get, you can turn their favor. And so the people that you can't convince to do things normally, maybe that's one that you can actually go out there and actually get them to do by intimidating, by finding something they love. Anyway, I love the Mystical Courtroom. How would you use the Mystical Courtroom in your game? The other encounter that I love is the time-looped puzzle. The time loop puzzle is a puzzle to where the players are playing Groundhog Day, meaning there's a series of events. If they go down a certain way, an event or something happens. If they go a different way, that event still happens. They still hear it, but they're trying to accomplish something else. The time loop puzzle is a lot of fun, but you have to be careful. Once the players do the time loop puzzle enough times, if they decide to go a certain way, you have to tell them that that way looks like this. So that way they don't have to replay those events, that combat over and over and over again, and they can get to the event to where the decision they make is going to split again. The time loop puzzle is an absolute blast, but I want to know, how would you use the time loop puzzle and how would you keep it from being monotonous? Because that's the only downfall to playing Groundhog's Day, is the monotony. How would you do it? The other encounter idea I love is the haunted marketplace. This is a marketplace, it's a bustling marketplace, but there are spirits or there are creatures that are haunting it. It's a great way to introduce basically mischievous fae or mischievous monsters that aren't also out there trying to kill or murder the players, but they're trying to figure out why those creatures are affecting the marketplace. It's a great way to introduce something that could have combat, but at the same time there's a diplomatic way. No one is being harmed in the haunted marketplace. It's just causing havoc wherever the players decide to go, and with the people that are in the marketplace. I really want to know how you would interpret it. What creatures would you use or what ghosts would you use in the haunted marketplace to make it interesting without creating a dire threat to everyone that's there? That's the key. The haunted marketplace is supposed to be fun, not intense in the terms of everyone's going to die. At the same time, it may be going in that direction, kind of like Ghostbusters, right? There's hauntings going on, but that's leading to something larger that actually is threatening. And so you can mix these two by having something that's diplomatic, an encounter that requires the players to think and figure out, but in the end, there could be combat if they don't solve things. Or depending on what they do at the haunted marketplace, depends on who and how the final boss is and how it approaches them. So in the haunted marketplace, what creatures would you use? I'm curious. Another encounter that I hear talked about, but I don't see, is the Living Labyrinth. A labyrinth that's changing, that's alive, that's sentient. The questions that I have about this are more questions I would pose to you, is what creatures would you have in the Living Labyrinth? Would you use druids and fae that can actually go in and out of the bushes and trees? Would the labyrinth itself be alive? Would it be sentient? Would it be something that is the reminiscence of something much more powerful? How would you introduce the Living Labyrinth and the people or the things that are inside of it? What would the Living Labyrinth be trying to accomplish? Is it trying to protect something at the center of it that the players are trying to get to? The Living Labyrinth has so many possibilities that it could be anything from a maze to get to a wizard's castle, to something that's protecting something in the center of it that actually feeds the area, or something that's a magic item that's been sent there to be protected so the players don't get access to it or it falls in the wrong hands. The purpose of the Living Labyrinth actually would give you how it would respond to the players. If it's trying to protect something, it will be a combat-based thing where the labyrinth is constantly changing and throwing things at the creatures, at the players. They're creatures too, right? Or it can be something whimsical, like a druid that's kind of out in the way that has something that's just there for fun. How would you use the Living Labyrinth? And finally, one that I would like to see more when it comes to encounters is the Diplomat Banquet. It's a banquet full of diplomats, and everyone has their own things. Think about the idea or the message of Clue, trying to figure out what people's motivations are and making them singular, making them easy to find, using insight checks, diplomacy, persuasion, all of those different things, or also figuring out how to get into the favor of those diplomats. Make quests simple, make quests easy for the players to actually accomplish to move things forward. And then always have 1 or 2 turncoats that know even when the players do something for them, they still show up against the players. You got to remember, the Diplomat Banquet is about putting the players against other NPCs that have motivations. But don't make this too complicated, or the fun kind of ruins out of it and runs out of it. This is one of those things where we can overlook things and make things too complex, where just having someone saying, if I only had a singular rose to give to the princess, that would be all I would need. And have the players have to get it. And then they have to go through a living labyrinth to get the magical rose to give to someone. But it's right there within the confines of the diplomatic space. Never have the players leave the space that they're in. You can have basically a banquet hall with a garden outside, with an arena, with stables that have all these different things. And you can have fun fetch quests. You can have go figure out what this person wants. How do I get in the good graces of this person? The Diplomat Banquet's one of those things where you make everyone one-dimensional. It's a movie. You don't want these super complex things if it's an encounter. Super complex interactions between multiple different groups of people or diplomats or leaders of countries comes more in the form of a campaign. The Diplomatic Banquet is supposed to be an encounter. So make things one-dimensional with a couple of two-dimensional characters. Because then if you make it too complex, your players will actually, they'll second guess themselves. So these were just 5 interesting encounter ideas to kind of give you an idea of how to craft an encounter that's not just simply a singular battle, but more of the overarching things. With a Diplomatic Banquet, a living labyrinth that can include combat and puzzles and NPCs all in the same thing. While it may not be one encounter, it's also not in a campaign. More think of it as one scene, one type of encounter that you're going to go through. So as always, guys, thank you so much for joining us. Like, subscribe, smash the buttons. We're shooting outside early in the morning, and it's colder than and so I am freezing. But thank you for helping us grow the channel, and I hope to have lots more coming soon.